Hello, my name is Jack, and I'm going to go over the way that I do digital drawings. The program that I'm using is Clip Studio Paint EX version, but this could be done with any digital program such as Photoshop or GIMP. So the way that I do is I work a lot in layers. Like right now, I am working on a quick pencil layer where I'm just throwing in my ideas really fast, just trying to figure out how everything is going to line itself up on the paper. My drawing is going to be Zelda related, and I'm thinking of having Link fighting some bokoblins. So as you can see, like right now, I'm not worried too much about how everything is looking. I just want to get basic shapes in. This is just a great way for your brain to just kind of let everything out, and for you to be able to see just what kind of space you're working with and what you can work in right now before you actually do your inks. If you followed any of my other tutorials that I did for the Medicine Public Library, I talk a little bit more about it, and I think they still have those up on their Facebook page. So yeah, I decided to go with four bokoblins, and I don't see a lot of drawings of Link with a boomerang, so that's why I decided to use a boomerang on this one. Right there, I started using the select tool just so he could look a little bit farther away because I was drawing him too close to Link. And then I'm using the position of that third bokoblin that I just drew. I'm going to draw the last one that I'll have in the little gang of attackers. And I want to give bokoblins their classic weapons, clubs and knives and swords. Now I'm working on the overall background, foreground, and the middle ground. Just throwing in ideas. It's going to be in a forest. So yeah. Once I'm actually okay with the way the pencils look, I'll do another layer. So what I did there is I made everything go into blue. You could use opacity. You just don't want your inks to blend into your pencils when you're working above them. So I started another layer, and this is where I'm going to use a lot of layers. I'm going to have different layers for different things. I'm going to do one for Link, one for each character, and then I'm going to have a foreground and a background. So once you start inking is when you actually start going into giving it your details. Using your pencils as your guiding, but you don't have to exactly go over your pencils. That they're just a rough sketch underneath there. From here, you can start making graphical decisions, design decisions of what actually looks good, or at least what looks good to you at that time. So speaking a little bit of what I'm using to make this, I have a tablet, a Wacom tablet. I know there's some other more portable options out there. Even you could even use an iPad with a Apple Pencil, and they have programs like Procreate and other programs that you could do some digital art in. So what I did now is I added another layer. It's going to be my bokoblin one layer. This is the great part about actually working with your pencils first, because it really gives you a roadmap of where everything's going to kind of be at, and then you can just use that to put in your more more refined artwork over it. And if you work in layers, it lets you not worry about how it's going to affect the other characters. That way, like when you're doing your lines, you don't have to worry about if your line is going over another character's leg or whatever, because you're going to also use layers in coloring, and that's going to hide some of the stuff behind them. And I'll make sure to bring that up once I go into the coloring part of this. So I flip back and forth just to make sure that I see how it's all looking. I'll turn off the pencils layer at times, and just so I could see. You could also, the good thing about drawing digitally is you can actually zoom into areas so you could see them better. And here I'm trying to figure out how to do that lower jaw. Bokoblins have a very distinct pig-like snout, and I'm just trying to see the best way to give it shape. Just adding jewelry, a little accessory to this bokoblin. In the game, some of them have skulls hanging from their necks. And here I'm doing just a club. When you're stuck trying to figure out a shape, go ahead and use references. Don't be afraid to look at how a tree branch actually looks like, and then it kind of gives you a cleaner idea. A lot of the times people think that when you're doing art, everything comes from the head, and it really doesn't. Our experiences and things that we've seen inspire us. So don't be afraid to go back to it. Look at pictures, look at references, so that you know what your drawing looks like, what you want it to look like. So I have one more bokoblin to go to. Again, this is one cool thing about digital too, is if it just doesn't look right, you can always resize it, and eventually it might work okay. It's just the way that you drew it the first time might be too big or too small. So that's what I did with that ear. I just selected it and shrunk it a little bit, and kind of works okay with it. I went back to the link layer here because I was like, the leg just doesn't look as dramatic. So I worked on the foot a little bit. And then I started working on the last bokoblin. I really wanted to make this one look very dopey, so I gave them smaller proportions than the other ones, with bigger ears and a little bit of battle damage on one. The thing about when you're doing it is just really just let yourself have fun. Art shouldn't be frustrating. At times it will get frustrating, especially if you're doing art as a job, but always try to find a spot where you're having fun. Um, I don't really like doing a lot of fan art, um, but because I was always so hard on myself about it, I always thought that doing somebody else's work was kind of, cheating or just wasn't the right thing to do. But now I just do fan art, not even to sell it. I don't sell prints of this or anything like that. It's just something I like. I enjoy playing Zelda games, so I like drawing Zelda. So just whenever you find yourself like in a funk or a block of not knowing what you want to do with your own art, just go back and do something you like. If you enjoy playing a video game, then do some art with a character from that video game. So what I'm gonna do here, you're gonna notice is that I'm actually gonna draw through my characters. This is a different layer, so the lines that I'm doing don't affect the characters' layers, but it's gonna help me do selections when I color. So I just go ahead and draw right through my characters. So you'll see lines going through the art that I had already done. Like we'll call the number 3, the one on the right side of the screen has a line just going right through its head. And we'll call the number 2 and Link right now have lines going through them too. But like I said, it's all going to be hidden once we do the coloring. So once we're done with the inking, we turn off our pencils and then we start coloring. For the sky, I do a gradient, usually from a darker blue to a lighter blue, and that kind of gives you a feel of a sky kind of effect. And then this is where I do the selection that I was talking about. I'm going to use the magic wand, and I'm going to go on the ink level, select inside the area, go back to the new layer, which is going to be my color layer, and expand it so to make sure that the color goes all the way into the ink, so that there's no open space that'll make it look weird. And then what I do, and that you'll notice, is that I do a color lock, which only allows me to change the color and doesn't let me redraw on a certain section. So like on the bush and the rock down there, I changed the black ink into a green and a brown ink. And you'll see me do that a lot. I usually do that with the characters. I didn't do that this time, just for time reasons. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see some of my art where I actually change a lot of the outlines. Right here, I am doing a shadow to make it seem like my character is standing and there's light coming down on him. I do a black circle and then I just lower the opacity so that it looks like a shadow. And I do that for all my characters. Now I'm just adding some shadows to some of the items that I had already colored and some highlights. I decided to change that rock. Instead of making it look sandy, I went just with the classic gray rock. The best thing about digital art is that you have an undo button, so you get to experiment a lot. Usually when you do something like this on a paper, once you do your markings with a marker or crayons or color pencils, it's really hard to kind of go over what you just did or undo something that didn't look right. The cool thing about layers is, I don't know if you guys noticed right there, I needed to delete something that went over into the rock. So since the rock is in a separate layer, when I erase that, it doesn't affect the rock, it just affects the layer that you're working on. So it's okay to work with a bunch of layers. Sometimes pieces could get up to 108 layers or more, depending on how much much detail and colors you're putting into them. But layers are your friend. So here I'm trying to figure out a nice skin tone for Link. And like I said, like if you do that selection with the magic wand and expansion of the area and dropping the fill in a separate layer, you get to color a lot faster. And then you could always go back and do color in the old-fashioned way, which is just filling it in manually. Now, to finish up Link, I go in and do some shadows and highlights on him too. This gives it kind of a three-dimensional feel to him, makes it stand out instead of looking so flat. Just by adding a little bit of shadows, you already start seeing him pop a little bit more. And try to keep in mind where your source of light is going to be. From him is coming above, so that's why there's a shadow casted down on the ground. So you kind of want to keep some of the stuff on top highlighted and things on the bottom a little bit more casted in shadow. And now I'm going to work on the bokoblins. The thing is, the bokoblins all have the same skin tone, so you could just put them all in one layer, your ink layer, and then do a separate layer for color. And the way you combine layers is you can use the shortcut, which is Control E or Command E, depending on if it's a Mac or a Windows. Or you could just go over to the program and it'll actually let you click on a button that says Combine. Most programs have that. And here I'm just doing some quick touch-ups on their wrappings and making sure that everything is looking okay, because it's going to be my basic flat color. And comics, this is what's called doing flats, because you're not worried about shadows and highlights and contrast right now. You're just putting in colors. now I'm finishing up the bokoblins. Pretty much have them all set up with their flaps. So all I have to do is add some highlights and some shadows, and the image will be done. Yeah, just pay attention to how fast you could make an image look a lot better by just adding some shadows and highlights. Comparing the ones on the top to the ones on the bottom, you already start seeing that just by adding some contrast to the color in their skin, it just makes the character feel more a part of the environment, more alive. And one thing you want to do too, if you want to add some shadows, is you could just click on the color so that you stay within those barriers with the magic wand. That's why you see those marching ants, the fuzziness around it. It's because I've selected that color. Um, and I could just go in there freely, not worrying about getting out of the line or anything like that, or going into the skin. It's just another little tip on that you pick up after doing digital art for a while. It just saves time. Last thing I gotta do is the mountain in the back. And my scene will be complete.